The chicken pot pie was still warm when she came home. Steam rising. Fork beside the plate, perfectly placed. The seat across from hers pulled out slightly, as if I'd just gone to the bathroom and never returned. I had cooked dinner like always. Set the table. Her wine glass was already half full. I even sliced the bread into perfect diagonals. She always hated jagged edges. Said it made the meal feel messy. And then I walked out the back door. No fight. No suitcase. Just the back gate squeaking once behind me, and my phone left on silent near the sink. Somewhere in the house, her voice called my name. Once. Twice. Then silence. I kept walking. 2 blocks down, I ducked into the old laundromat on Elmsworth Avenue. It's been closed for months. The for sale sign was half peeled. I'd hidden a backpack behind one of the dryers 3 nights earlier. Inside were my IDs, $3,700 in cash, 2 prepaid burner phones, and a worn notebook filled with passwords and one-liner regrets. I sat on the sticky tile floor and waited. I gave her 5 minutes. 5 to read the note. It was on her pillow, neatly folded, written with the pen she kept in her planner. I debated making it poetic, but in the end, all it said was, "You once told me, if you disappeared, no one would even notice." I'm finally testing that theory. That's when the phone rang. Not mine, hers. I watched the screen flash from a reflection in the laundromat window. She was calling my cell, then texting, then calling again. A minute later, her mom called, then her sister, then her friend Adrian. Oh, Adrian. That's when I smiled for the first time in weeks. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I wasn't even trying to scare her. I just wanted to vanish, without drama, without yelling, just quiet absence, like she always claimed I already was. But as I sat there, crouched beside that dryer, I realized something unsettling. She wasn't scared because I left. She was scared because she thought someone else had taken me. And judging by the people she contacted next, she had reason to. I wasn't expecting her to call him. Not right away. Not before calling the cops, at least. But 5 minutes after she rang my phone 4 times in a row, Adrian's name lit up across the reflection of the dark laundromat window. I knew because his contact photo was a smirking selfie he once sent to me by accident, followed by, "Oops, meant that for Val LOL." At the time I played it off, laughed with him, even teased Valerie about it. But deep down I'd felt something shift. Something I didn't want to admit had weight. And now, here it was. He was the first man she called when she found an empty dinner plate and a missing husband. Not the police. Not her brother. Not even her therapist. Adrian. I stayed still, crouched behind the dryer, the air stale with lint and old detergent, my knees aching from the cold tile. Across the street, our house glowed like a stage set. The curtains weren't drawn. I could see her silhouette pacing the living room, phone pressed to her ear, wine untouched, the chicken pot pie already starting to go cold. Then she stopped pacing. She just stood there, statue-like, watching the front door, waiting. And that's when the front porch light flicked on. Someone else was there. My chest locked up as I leaned closer to the window. It wasn't Adrian, not yet. It was her sister, Meredith. She must have come straight over the moment Valerie called. The two of them stood in the living room, arguing. Meredith gestured toward the dinner table like it was a crime scene. Val looked at the couch, then down the hall, then directly out the window. For a second, I thought she saw me. But she didn't. Back in the laundromat, I turned off my second burner phone. It had started buzzing too. Unknown number. Probably her boss. Or maybe Adrian already looping in others. Either way, it was spreading. The story of the vanishing husband. The man who slipped out after dinner and left no trail except a half-finished note and a full meal. I wondered what they were saying. That I had a breakdown? That I'd finally snapped from the pressure of the job? That maybe I was wandering barefoot into traffic, muttering to myself about betrayal? I almost laughed. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know what I had found 3 nights ago, right before I started planning all this. I hadn't intended to snoop. Honestly, I wasn't even suspicious anymore. I was numb. I was lying in bed while Valerie slept with her back to me, like always, when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I saw the name flash. A. Just that, 1 letter. Cryptic, but not uncommon. I figured it was work. A reminder. Maybe a group chat. But then it buzzed again. And again. And when I finally rolled over and unlocked it, because yes, she once told me her password in a moment of distraction, I found messages that didn't look like work. They didn't even look like flirtation. They looked like planning. schedules, times, a rental cabin address upstate. One message said, "He never looks, don't worry." Another said, "We'll finally have space." Space for what? For them? I didn't say anything that night. Didn't throw the phone. Didn't confront her. I just lay back, stared at the ceiling, and decided to become invisible on purpose. Now here I was, crouched in a dusty laundromat, watching her world react to my absence like a rock dropped in still water. The ripples were spreading, but what they didn't know was that I wasn't gone. I was watching everything. And the more I stayed hidden, the more they all began to reveal themselves. Especially Adrian. Because the next morning, I checked his social media from an old dummy account I hadn't touched in years. And what I saw there made my blood run cold. He'd posted a photo at 3 a.m. of my kitchen, captioned with 3 emojis, clinking glasses, locked, shushing face. And in the blurry background, zoomed in just enough, you could barely see her hand. She was still wearing her wedding ring. That photo wasn't meant for his followers. It wasn't some innocent, late-night humble brag of wine and ambience. Adrian was sending a message to me. It wasn't even subtle. I don't know how many of their mutual friends saw it before he deleted it, but I screenshotted it fast. My kitchen, my chair, my table, and her hand brushed against his wine glass like it belonged there. Same wedding band. Same bracelet I gave her for our 3rd anniversary, the one she said was too shiny to wear casually. I remember her saying she'd only wear it for special nights. And I guess this counted. Special. A celebration, maybe. Or a test. Either way, it didn't matter. The caption was the knife. Clinking glasses, locked, shushing face. Cheers. Locked. Silence. What kind of person posts a secret and dares you to see it? I sat there in the laundromat for another hour, my hands shaking. Not from anger, but from the fact that I still had this aching hope that I was wrong. That maybe the photo was old. Maybe she wasn't even in the room when he took it. Maybe that was someone else's hand. I zoomed in. The ring had a tiny scratch along the inside edge. I knew that scratch. I'd made it the night we got engaged, fumbled the box, and dropped it on the sidewalk in Charleston. She laughed, said it made the ring more ours. I remembered her face when she said that. The soft smile. The joy. Where the hell did that woman go? I didn't sleep. Just sat on the grimy laundromat floor, flipping the burner phone open and shut, trying not to spiral. At around 4 a.m., I snuck back to the house, keeping to the shadows. The lights were off. The kitchen looked exactly like it had in the photo. The chairs were pushed in differently now. 2 wine glasses sat drying on the counter. One had lipstick on the rim. She never used lipstick for dinner with me. I looked through the front window, and for the first time in years, I saw a scene that didn't include me, and it was perfectly complete. Like I had already died, and no one had the courtesy to bury me. But here's the thing about disappearing. If you do it right, people start filling in the blanks for you. I wasn't posting. I wasn't calling. I wasn't checking in with work. I had shut off every digital trail. But someone, maybe Valerie, maybe Adrian, maybe even Meredith, decided to float the idea that I was having a mental health crisis, that I had snapped under stress, that I'd walked out after a breakdown. I know this because a coworker messaged my old dummy Instagram. His message was simple. "Hey man, I hope you're okay. I heard what she said. If you need to crash somewhere, text me." What she said, not what happened. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to escalate, but quietly. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into our joint bank account, the same one we never really used anymore. She had her own by then, for freelance deposits. But I'd left my name on it. I guess she forgot that. Or maybe she assumed I wouldn't look. Wrong. At 5:12 a.m., I found something that made my stomach twist. 2 nights before my disappearance, she'd transferred $4,800 to an Airbnb account under a name I didn't recognize. No message. No receipt. Just the booking ID and a reference number. I copied it, and I called the Airbnb hotline from the burner. The property? A remote hillside cabin in Blue Ridge, Georgia. 2 guests. 4-night stay. Check-in date. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. So they weren't just celebrating my disappearance. They were getting ready for their victory lap. And that's when the fog in my head lifted. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't even scared. I was planning. Because they thought I was gone. But I had just become the one person in their lives who could see everything and say nothing. And that is power. The cabin sat high above a winding dirt road, surrounded by bare trees, and the kind of silence that made you hear your own breath whether you wanted to or not. It was one of those rustic chic places designed for city couples trying to play mountain life for a weekend. Gorgeous in pictures, probably filled with scented firewood and overpriced throw pillows. I parked half a mile down, off the main road, where the tree line thickened. Hiked the rest with nothing but a black duffel, my camera, binoculars, and a notebook. This wasn't a stakeout. Not really. I wasn't the jealous ex-husband hiding in bushes. I was the forgotten man finally seeing the truth in its rawest, ugliest form. I told myself that over and over, like a prayer. I arrived 3 hours before check-in. From behind a fallen tree trunk about 40 yards out, I had a perfect view of the porch. It was early afternoon, the air sharp and cold, the sky overcast with that eerie, colorless brightness. I sat motionless, ignoring the ache in my legs, my focus locked on the gravel path winding up to the house. I didn't know if they'd arrive together. I didn't know what they'd do once they got inside. I only knew I had to see it. I had to make what was hidden real. I had to witness my own erasure. Around 2:38 p.m., a black Audi pulled up. Driver's side opened first. Adrian. Of course. Too perfect hair, smug walk, his jacket slung casually over one shoulder like he was stepping into a damn photo shoot. Then the passenger door opened. Valerie stepped out, her smile lazy, practiced. I watched her stretch like a cat, reach up to fix her sunglasses, and laugh when Adrian tossed her the keys. They kissed once, quickly, not cautiously, like a routine, and then he slapped her rear playfully before they both walked inside. It took everything in me not to move, not to scream, not to storm the cabin like some deranged idiot and demand answers. But I held the line. I documented. I wrote it down in my notebook. 2:38 p.m. Arrived together. Casual, comfortable, familiar, no hesitation. By 4 p.m., they had unpacked. I saw wine bottles on the porch railing. I saw a Bluetooth speaker light up inside. Music floated faintly through the trees, something indie, too mellow to match the fire I felt building in my chest. They were comfortable, like this was their place, like this was some long-anticipated tradition. And I started wondering, how many times had this happened before? How many weekends had I thought she was visiting her sister or needed a solo spa trip? How many times had I just let her go, trusted her, folded laundry, watered her plants, told her I missed her, and she was here, with him? The worst part wasn't the kissing, or the way she leaned her head on his chest while he lit the fireplace inside. No, the worst part came just after sunset. The cabin had large, open windows, no curtains drawn. That's when I saw it. Valerie at the table, laying out something that looked like a photo album. Adrian was pouring wine, laughing. And then they started pointing at the pictures, laughing harder. I zoomed in with the camera, adjusting the lens slowly, carefully. I couldn't see the images clearly, but I saw the pages. Glossy. Color. Their bodies leaned in like they were reliving something together. That wasn't a photo album. That was a collection. Their collection. Proof. Memories. My wife was cataloging her affair right there on the table, for him, with him. And the way she looked at him when he pointed at a page, her eyes lit up like he'd just brought her to life. I sat back against the tree and stared up at the sky, now dark and dotted with stars. And for the first time since leaving home, I cried. Quietly. Violently. The kind of crying that hits from the stomach, not the eyes. I pressed my sleeve into my face to muffle the sound, and I grieved. Not just for the marriage, not just for the betrayal, but for the version of myself that believed, even up to this point, that maybe she was just lost. That maybe she didn't mean it. That maybe Adrian was just a phase. But what I saw tonight, that was a life. A second, secret life I never got invited to. And yet, I still wasn't done. Because the notebook they flipped through had something tucked into the back sleeve. A folded sheet. I recognized it. It was a printout of our wedding vows. My handwriting. She brought me to their getaway. And tomorrow morning, before they even wake up, I'm going to leave something in the mailbox that'll remind them exactly who I still am. I may be gone, but I am watching. At 5:13 a.m., the cabin was still. No lights. No movement. The cold was worse than the night before, but I barely felt it anymore. I hadn't slept, just laid against the earth, bones stiff, ears sharp, running on adrenaline and resentment. I had memorized their routines now. They'd be up by 7:30, coffee by 7:45, music by 8. Some fake domestic ritual, probably making pancakes or photographing the sunrise like they earned it. I had time, just enough to slide in and leave my little message. I waited another 10 minutes before moving, creeping up the slope with the precision of a hunter. The mailbox was about 20 feet from the front steps, nestled by a bent wooden post covered in faded stickers, some national park thing, and a couple of inspirational quotes. One of them said, "Be where your feet are." I almost laughed at that. I was exactly where my feet were, and they were standing on the land where my marriage had been buried. I pulled a plain white envelope from my coat pocket. Inside was a single photograph, not of them, not of me, but of us, Valerie and me, taken 4 years ago at the pier in Wilmington. We'd gone there to reset our marriage after her first emotional affair with a coworker named Blake, another name she swore meant nothing. In the photo, her head is on my shoulder. We're smiling, real smiles, the kind you don't fake because you're too tired to know you're being watched. On the back of the photo, I'd written one sentence. "Does he know what you looked like when you were still capable of guilt?" I sealed the envelope and wrote Adrian on the front. Not Valerie, not to whom it may concern. I wanted it to hit him first. I wanted him to know this wasn't just some discarded husband sulking in a hotel room. This was a man who knew how to play quiet. A man who could vanish while standing right in front of you. I slipped the letter inside and backed away, boots crunching gently over the frost. As I reached the tree line again, I looked back. Everything was untouched, silent, as if I'd never been there. And yet something had changed. I knew it. I made it back to my car and drove 5 towns over, parked behind a closed antique store, and checked into a motel under a fake name I'd practiced writing 3 dozen times. Dean Keller. I paid in cash. Declined cleaning service. Hung a do not disturb sign that would stay there all week. From the motel, I monitored everything. At 8:02 a.m., the front porch camera I had discreetly installed behind a nearby tree pinged to life. Adrian stepped out, hoodie, mug in hand, looking sleepy, self-satisfied. He opened the mailbox and pulled out the envelope. I saw the hesitation in his body language instantly. He didn't open it right away. He just stared, turned it over, checked the name again, looked around. Then he went back inside. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then I got the text. It was from Valerie's sister, Meredith. The one person I hadn't blocked. The one person I knew would still believe I wasn't entirely insane. The message said, "Did you send Val a photo? She's freaking out. Keeps saying you were in her head again. Want me to call someone? Police?" I didn't reply. I didn't have to. The letter had worked. Not because it scared them, but because it reminded them. I'm not erased. I'm still writing the story. And the next chapter? It's already being printed. Because while they were drinking wine and laughing over old memories, I had done something they never expected from me. I made copies, not just of texts or photos, but of every reservation, every transaction, every whispered plan. And there's one name neither of them accounted for. Valerie's employer. Because guess whose freelance work was actually billed through Adrian's firm? Guess who approved that budget? Guess who didn't disclose it? Guess who I just mailed a neat, anonymized, evidence-laced packet to? This affair wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. And now, it's about to get professional. 3 days after the envelope reached the cabin, I stopped watching them directly. Not because I was done, but because I no longer needed to. I had planted enough seeds. Now it was time to watch the garden burn from afar. Instead, I started watching someone else, someone they'd forgotten mattered. Thomas Delaney, CFO at Beckmanshire and Associates. Valerie's employer. Technically Adrian's, too, though they always claimed they operated in different verticals. That's the kind of language people use when they're hiding something, like putting a tarp over a dumpster and calling it landscaping. Valerie had told me once, over a bottle of wine she didn't finish, that her freelance gig was completely self-managed. That she submitted invoices, did contract-based consulting, handled her own taxes. All clean, all clear. But she never expected I'd ever look into it. Why would she? I was Curtis, the guy who didn't even know how to use a VPN before YouTube tutorials. But I'd spent my week in that dingy motel doing what I'd never done during our marriage, looking under the hood. I scoured everything. Used her old laptop. Yes, I still had it. She left it in my office last year and forgot. And buried in one of her Chrome profiles was a full export of her cloud invoices. Some had been routed through Adrian's company card. One invoice from August, $1, 204 creative brand strategy deliverables. Had the memo VB. Expedite with A's approval. Hey, Adrian. They thought using initials would keep it clean. That's when I wrote the email. No threats. No drama. No mention of the affair. Just facts. Anonymous burner address. Subject line. Unauthorized expense irregularity. Client 2407. I listed 6 suspicious charges. Attached screenshots. Attached the invoice PDF metadata showing Valerie's edit timestamps. And one last sentence. If this reaches legal discovery, please note this communication as first contact. I hit send at 4:52 p.m. on a Thursday. At 6:11 p.m, Valerie called my mom. Not me, my mom, who lives 2 states away and hasn't heard from her since our wedding. I don't know what was said on that call exactly, but my mom texted me shortly after. Valerie sounded panicked. Didn't ask if you were okay. Just kept saying she didn't mean for things to go this far. This far. That's what did it for me. That's when I knew they felt the wall behind them. Because it was never about guilt, or love, or regret. It was about consequences. Valerie didn't cry when I disappeared. She cried when the paper trail started fighting back. The next morning, Thomas Delaney responded. Thank you for the heads up. This matter is now under review. No further contact is required. No signature. No formal sign-off. Just that. I imagine the internal panic that must have followed. HR digging through payment logs. Legal checking if any NDAs were breached. Adrian pacing in that overpriced corner office of his, while Valerie tried to keep her hands from shaking. They would spin it, of course. Say it was misfiled. That the payments were authorized, just poorly documented. But that wouldn't erase the time-stamped log of every sneaky weekend. Every receipt marked, training retreat. Every $500 Uber Black trip billed as client shuttle. I had all of it. And I wasn't releasing it to the world. That would have made me the villain. No, I was doing something worse. I was being quiet. A leak here. A whisper there. One nudge to a board member's assistant. One anonymous voicemail to the office ethics hotline. One Dropbox link sent to a random intern in accounting, titled simply, Reconcile These. By Saturday, Adrian had scrubbed his Instagram clean. Valerie deactivated her Facebook. And late that night, my phone, one of the burners, buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in months. Her dad. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't say hello. He just said, "What the hell are you doing, Curtis?" And I said, with more calm than I'd ever spoken in my life, "Leaving a footprint, sir." Like Valerie said, I was never really here. I'm just making sure they feel it now. He hung up. No threats. No warnings. Just silence. And that was the loudest thing I'd heard all week. Because once the family starts making calls, someone's reputation is already on fire. By the following Monday, I had turned from a ghost into a phantom limb. Something she couldn't see but kept flinching from, over and over. I wasn't calling, texting, posting, or threatening. And that's what made it worse. Because now she was left in a loop with no closure, no tantrum, no final fight she could frame as the moment he snapped. I gave her nothing but silence. And that kind of silence echoes. She didn't know I was back in the city. She didn't know I'd spent the last 2 days camped out in an underground parking garage 1 block from her office. She didn't know that I'd timed her commute so precisely I could guess her arrival within 2 minutes. At 8:11 a.m., her bronze Subaru pulled in, tires squeaking slightly as she rounded the turn. She parked in the same spot she always did, level 2B, 4th row, against the pillar with the faded blue paint. The same spot she told me once was close enough to be safe, but far enough not to bump into coworkers. I waited until she went inside. Then I walked up and placed a single manila envelope on the hood. No stamps. No address. Just her name. Written in my handwriting. The same way I'd written it on our wedding invitation envelopes 10 years ago. Clean. Centered. Underlined once. Inside was a letter. It wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was clinical. Structured. Precise. Valerie, I've chosen not to contact you directly. Not because I'm afraid, but because I have nothing left to say that you haven't already ignored. You once told me that if I disappeared, no one would notice. That no one would care. That I was forgettable. Replaceable. You were half right. I did disappear. And in the space I left, the truth spilled out. This is not a plea. Not a love letter. Not revenge. This is me giving you the one thing you never gave me. Clarity. Enclosed, you'll find the preliminary divorce petition, a full asset breakdown, and a notarized request for non-contestation. You'll also see a copy of the complaint filed with the ethics board at Beckmanshire, as well as a statement from your bank confirming your name was on the fraudulent accounts. I'm not here to ruin your life. You already did that. I'm just making sure I'm not buried in the rubble with you. See, I also included something else in the envelope. A single page torn from her planner, the one she'd left open on our dining room table the night I first heard Adrian's laugh through the bedroom wall. On that page, dated 2 months before I left, she had written a short checklist. Pack for retreat. Message eerie, key. Book sitter for Biscuit. That's our dog, whom she left with me that weekend. Remember, Curtis doesn't ask questions. Just be sweet before you leave. I circled that last line in red. Then I walked away. I didn't wait to see her reaction. I didn't need to. Because an hour later, I got an email from her attorney, not her. It was a canned message with a PDF attachment acknowledging receipt of the divorce petition. No fight, no challenge, just clinical compliance. But attached at the bottom was a personal note, clearly written by Valerie. The font was different. No signature. This didn't have to go this way. I didn't think you had this in you. I hope it was worth it. I stared at the words for a long time, and then I replied, with just one sentence. It was never about what I had in me. It was about what you never saw. I hit send, then deleted the email account for good. There would be no trial, no drawn-out court circus. We had no kids, no real property to dispute, no mutual friends left to split down the middle, just names on paper, just silence in rooms we used to share. But it wasn't over, not for her. Because while I was legally exiting the wreckage, someone else had just entered it. Her boss. Her real boss. Because the documents I submitted had triggered more than an internal audit. They triggered a subpoena. And this time, it wasn't my name on the line. 3 weeks passed before I heard the last sound I needed from her. Nothing. No calls. No emails. No middle-of-the-night block number voicemails. No surprise letters from her new attorney trying to twist the narrative. Just pure, aching silence. The kind that meant she'd finally realized there was no more game left to play. Valerie was smart, but like most people who live in illusion too long, she mistook the quiet ones for weak. She thought I was the type to beg for attention, to fight for scraps of her love, to break when she pulled away. But I had learned something powerful in that silence she once weaponized. Stillness is not the absence of strength. It's the presence of control. After the subpoena landed at her firm, things unraveled quickly. I didn't ask for updates, didn't need them. Whispers reach you when you stop talking. A mutual acquaintance mentioned Adrian's LinkedIn status quietly changed to open to work. Another said Valerie was taking a leave for personal reasons. That was corporate for. Something got exposed. I didn't even have to lift a finger after that. Their own lies choked them out. I had already moved out of state by then. Took Biscuit with me, of course. Found a small coastal town where nobody knew my name or my past. Rented a studio above a bookstore, close enough to the water that I could hear it crashing through the window at night. Peace didn't come all at once. It arrived in fragments. Like morning fog burning off slowly, until you can finally see your hands again and realize you're not broken. You're just healing. I joined a community hiking group. Nothing serious. Just weekend trails, shared thermoses, nods instead of questions. No one asked me who I used to be. They asked if I liked dogs. If I preferred black coffee or cream. If I'd ever seen whales off the coast this early in the year. For once, the conversations didn't feel like traps. They felt like breath. And one morning, as I stood on a cliffside overlooking the sea, leash in one hand, hot coffee in the other, I saw something I hadn't seen in myself for years. Freedom. Not from her. Not from marriage. Not even from betrayal. But from the idea that I was invisible. Because the truth was, I was never invisible. She just refused to look. And now, as she sits in a world unraveling without me, desperately trying to rewrite the ending, I've already stepped into a brand new chapter she'll never be part of. I didn't vanish. I evolved.